Welcome to Salesology, conversations with sales leaders, the art of faster, easier, more profitable sales. When you're ready to transform your sales for today's transforming market, we've got you covered. With your host, the queen of cold calling and founder of Salesology, award-winning author, speaker, sales trainer, and coach, Wendy Weiss.
Hi, welcome to Salesology, conversations with sales leaders, the art of faster, easier, more profitable sales. And I am your host, Wendy Weiss. I am the founder of Salesology and the Salesology Prospecting Method. I am known as the queen of cold calling. And I have a very special treat in store for you today because we have a very, very special guest. My friend, my colleague, I am honored to present Tom Hopkins. He is the CEO of Tom Hopkins International, the man who needs no introduction, but I'm going to introduce him anyways. He is world-renowned as the builder of sales champions. And his practical yet powerful selling strategies have made the careers of literally millions of sales professionals. Tom's been teaching via live events, online events, recorded audios, videos, and through his books for over 40 years. And his classic book, How to Master the Art of Selling, is dog-eared and filled with yellow highlighter on the shelves of today's top sales pros. So I am going to have to ask Tom if he's been looking at my bookshelf and he saw my copy of How to Master the Art of Selling, because that's what it looks like. And here's the thing. Tom teaches simple strategies you can put to work in your very next sales presentation. And that's why millions have built their careers on his training, because his training gets results, close sales, happy customers. Welcome, Tom Hopkins.
Well, Wendy, I can't tell you how great it is to not only see you again via our video, but also to know how well you're doing with Salesology. To me, not only is the company name wonderful, but it really resonates with what we are all about, how to communicate effectively with other people to where they agree, come along with us on a journey to where they own our product or service, and they invest their time, their energy, their money to grow and to build a better life based on what we teach. So let me say, I'm thrilled to be with you, loving the chance to share some ideas. And I think we're in a very important point in our lives, most of us, to where it's time to go to the next level. Opportunities are so valuable out there, and we have to be focused. We have to say, I've got to get better in my communication skills. So I'm thrilled to be here and have time with you.
Well, thank you, Tom. And I want to ask you, because what you just said about honing your communication skills, it's so important. How did you get into this? What's the backstory for Tom Hopkins? How did you become the Tom Hopkins, the builder of sales champions? Where did it all start?
Well, it really started, I was only 19, and I had been working in construction, carrying steel as an iron worker on bridge decks, and I had no education. I lasted in college for 3 months, 90 days. And when I left college and quit, my father was so upset with me. And he was my first real motivator, because I came home and he said, why aren't you in school? I said, Dad, I don't want to go to college. It's not my thing. And he said, son, you'll never amount to anything without a degree. And I said, Dad, I'm not going to college. And of course, I went to my bedroom depressed, and a young man told by his father he'd never amount to anything. And of course, my uncle came to have dinner with us, and he, of course, walked into my bedroom and said, Tom, you got to be kidding. You quit college? And I said, Uncle Don, I don't want to go to college. It's not my thing. And he said, well, what are you going to do with your life? I said, Uncle Don, I have no idea. he said, well, you know, I'm now the general manager of a steel company here in Los Angeles, and we need iron workers. Now, most people don't realize when they look out in their backyard or someone's backyard and see a pool being built, they would never pour the concrete without reinforcing rebar, which would be about a number 4 bar, which is the size of this finger. Well, when I went to work for my uncle, carrying steel, we were working on bridge decks that have a bar called a number 11 bar, which is inch and 3/8. They cut them in 60-foot lengths. They weigh 208 pounds. And the only way you get that bar off the truck, off the dirt to the deck is carrying them. Well, that was the only thing I could do. So I carried steel for a year. I always tease my audiences at seminars. I was 6'2" when I started, but I'm now only 5'7", and they all laugh. But I really believe that 1 year of hard work gave me a foundation. And luckily, I say that very honestly, I decided to get a real estate license. I failed it 3 times, my exam. My 4th time, I got my license. And I really believe in life, when you find the niche that is meant for you, everything turns on. Well, that's what happened to me when I got into real estate. I was fortunate to be hired by a very top broker, and I was a student of what the top people said and how they came across. And I literally started copying the top salespeople and listening to what they said to people on the phone, what they said when they met a person at the first time, how they relaxed them at the table or desk. And I became, Wendy, an avid student of other people's proven phraseology, just like you with salesology. So this, again, is kind of what happened to me. And then, of course, you know, I hit 1 year, I think it was my 4th, where everything came together. And on November 15th that year, my manager calls me into his office and he says, Tom, are you aware of what you're doing? And I said, yeah, I'm having a blast selling a lot of property, making a lot of money. He goes, yeah, but you've done something that to our knowledge has never been done. You've been averaging 1 home sale a day, which no one sold 365 homes in 365 days. And he said, Tom, if you do that and we can honestly promote it, your life will never be the same. Well, I worked like crazy, and sure enough, I did the 365 and 365. And he, of course, was so proud that I was in his office and started promoting me. And my phone started ringing off the hook, Wendy, because people said no one, because the average person would sell maybe 4 houses a month. I was doing 30 plus a month. And they said, no one can do that, but I did. And that's when my life was changed. And I really believe all of you that are watching us realize that life changes happen when you become more competent, more accessible, more reliable, and a better communicator in all areas of your life, which is what both Wendy and I have built the foundation of what we teach on. So true.
Yeah, I want to piggyback on what you said and ask your opinion, because actually this is part of my life mission. You know, there is this myth out there that somehow there are these people that are born salespeople. And because I hear that, I'm sure you hear that from potential clients. They say they've hired someone, they're a born salesperson. And I say, okay, great, let's talk in a few months. And I'd like to hear your opinion on this concept of, I'm making finger quotes here, born salesperson.
Well, first of all, you know, there are people with personalities, temperaments, and skills communicating that do well if they've never had any training in the field of sales. Sure, there are. But there's also a lot of people that think they can sell, but have never been taught the right ways of coming across the original introduction, how to prospect properly at the door or out in a business. And I've always believed that you may be born with certain skills, but the top producers I've ever met have been avid students of training, and they've learned from others. See, had I not sold 365 homes in 1 year and not handled almost every objection possible, and had not written books, 18 now, on the art of communication and selling, most people would not sit and internalize what I teach. But many of them say, hey, if he's done this, I have to make what he says and does a part of me. And that's what I did when I first started. I had a man that was the father, that was his title. When they'd introduce him on the stage, he was called the father of American selling. And that was J. Douglas Edwards. And he, of course, was the one that changed my life. And, you know, life has changes that you cannot believe. Let me give you an example, Wendy. I went to Mr. Edwards' seminar. I was 19. He had a competition like we do at our programs where you had to learn what was being taught and have a quiz. And of course, I stayed up all night for 2 nights. I maybe had an hour's sleep in 2 nights because I wanted to win that competition. And sure enough, I did. And because I won, I had an opportunity to go to lunch with Mr. Edwards. And here's the things that's so amazing about life. I met with him. I told him that my goal is to become so good at selling that I earn the right to take over what he did in teaching. And he said, Tom, I would love you too. He didn't have anyone that was ready to do that. And I knew he lived in Arizona, Wendy. I was now in Southern California. And I decided that I was going to move. I had a man offer me a chance to buy a real estate school here in Phoenix. And I decided to move. Now, I had no idea where Mr. Edwards lived. I knew it was in Arizona, 4 million people back then, approximately in Phoenix, Scottsdale. Well, I buy this home and move in with my family, and I'm unloading or showing the movers where to put furniture, and suddenly I hear a voice behind me. Is Tom Hopkins here? And I turned, and there standing in my garage is J. Douglas Edwards. Well, my mouth dropped open. I said, Mr. Edwards, what are you doing here? He says, I thought I'd welcome my new next door neighbor to the area. Now, keep in mind, out of approximately 4 million people, I buy a home having no idea where he lived right next door to him, which again is the things that happen to a person. If you have the right attitude, the right motivation, and I lived next door to him, became like a second son to him, and I have to give him such credit to helping me be a person on a stage to communicate, to teach, to motivate, to excite, and help people build their careers to the next financial and emotional successful part of their life. And that's very important to me. Most people don't know that, but I really believe when you're ready, the right things and people can come into your life that can be life-changing.
Yeah. And you know what I love about what you said, Tom, because you were talking about 365 homes in 365 days, and you learn to deal with every single objection. But before that, You told me that you had been educating yourself by listening to all of the other salespeople and learning how they handled objections and how they did their presentations. And so that's what enabled you to then handle all of those objections, which then enabled you to sell all of those homes, which set this next stage for you to be ready for the things that happened. And you were still learning. He sounds like he was your mentor. And
so true, Wendy. I went to this seminar when I was just again getting started, and the person said, find out who makes the most money in your company and go to them and just beg, if you have to, if they'll let you watch them and listen to them. Well, I've always been coachable. So the company I worked with had about 300 people. And I found out from the owner or the top person, there was a woman named Rose Lane who probably sold more real estate than almost anyone in California. And I humbled myself. Excuse me. I went to her. I said, Mrs. Lane, I'm Tom Hopkins. I'm 19. I'm scared to death. I've got my license, but I don't know what to say and do. And I said, would you mind if I listened to you and watched you when you talk to people? And of course, she had a nice desk in an office, and I got a chair next to her, and I copied Wendy, what she said, how she came across. And I can honestly say that she got my foundation going with how to cope with not only a presentation, but objections, because she was masterful. And here's one of the largest real estate companies back then, and she was number one because of her ability to communicate. And that's, I think, the skill that we all need to develop, how to communicate effectively where people bring down defense barriers, people open up their minds, their ears, their eyes, and want to hear our message. And at the end of it, want to invest in or involve themselves with what we are leading them to. That's the yes.
Absolutely. And what else I love about your story is that you kept going, even though there were times like failing. You said you failed the real estate licensing test like 3 times, but you kept going and you got your license. And so many salespeople, I'm sure you've seen this, they go, I called the prospect, they wouldn't talk to me, this doesn't work, I'm done.
Yeah, it's really a numbers game that you have to realize you've got to get through the rejection. You can't take it personally. I have tried to live by a belief that all the yeses in life are hidden behind no's. So you have to cope with the no's to get the yes. And this was true in my life. I had an interview the other day, and the person said, "What was your worst day?" And I, had to think, because, it's a lot of years ago. And I said, one of my worst days ever is I went to this door because I believed, and I've always believed that contact personally is how you build business. So I was a door knocker. I would go out in the street. And in fact, people say to me, Tom, you weren't doing real well, and what changed your life? And I say, well, I had one day that was, I think, life-changing. I'd been 4.5 months in real estate. My savings from construction was almost gone. I'm scared to death that I won't make it. And my manager of the real estate office, who had just bought a beautiful brand new Lincoln Continental, which was the real estate car back then, he said, Tom, why don't we go for a ride? I said, that sounds great. So we get in his car and we drive up into a residential area, and he pulls the car over and he goes, Tom, it's time for you to get out. I said, we're 3 miles from the office. What do you mean? He says, Tom, you've been sitting in the office making no money, And the only way you're going to make any money is to talk to people. So you have a 3-mile walk back to the office with all these wonderful homeowners living in houses. And of course, I cursed him, Wendy, with every terrible word I could think of. I had no choice, though. I didn't know what to say, how to come across. And I started just knocking on doors. And of course, he said before he drove off, Wendy, he said, for every 100 doors that you knock on, you'll meet one totally qualified person as a buyer or seller that you'll make money off of. Well, of course, I cursed him and started counting. But sure enough, I hit the 64th door and I knocked on it. A man answered. I said, hi, I'm Tom Hopkins. I'm in real estate. Have you thought of moving or selling your home? And he looked at me and goes, you have a real estate license? And of course, I was only 19. I said, yes, sir, I do. He said, stay here. And he turned and called his wife, honey, come to the front door. And the wife walks up and he'd taken my card and given it to her. And she says, you have a real estate license? I says, yes, ma'am, I do. And she says, please step in, young man. Well, now I'm a little nervous and scared. What the heck is happening? And she sits me down and says, last night we heard that my husband has to be transferred, which means he's going to leave myself and the 3 children here to get moved and sell the home. And we got on our knees and prayed that God would send us a real estate agent.
That is the most wonderful story I've ever heard.
Hallelujah. What's funny, Wendy, is I not only got them, sold a home for them, got them moved as a family, but I knocked doors around that property and I started realizing that the key to everything is talking to more people. Keep your contact numbers up and the sales will follow. And that became my life. I became a door knocking fool. And what's so funny is I just had Taylor McCarthy, who is the man taking over my training. And that's literally been his whole life, out on the street saying hello to people. He's a solar representative, marketing solar for homes, one of the top income earners in not only his company, but maybe in sales in the country. But it is a contact sport, and you just have to put your ego on the line, handle the possible rejection, which is obvious, is going to be there. But don't let the no's get you down, because behind all the no's are the hidden yeses that lead you to the money.
I love that story. And we're going to take a pause right now for a word from our sponsor. But then when we come back, I want to hear more about your announcement that you just sort of started to talk about, and Taylor, that's very exciting. And then I have some more questions for you as well. So, but now, a word from our sponsor, Salesology 3X Appointments. You know how frustrating and stressful it is when you leave every sales meeting wondering if your sales team knows how to sell, because they're not selling and all you ever hear from them are excuses. They blame your marketing, they say you need to do more social media, and they say you need a new website. You know something's wrong, but you don't quite know what it is, and you're even starting to wonder if it's you. You don't have a lot of options. You could fire them all and start from scratch, and that would be expensive. And you're sick of waking up in the middle of the night wondering how to fix this. Well, imagine instead that you have an easy-to-use, replicable system that ensures that your team can easily schedule qualified appointments. And imagine that your team is excited and motivated. No more excuses, and you feel good. Salesology 3X Appointments can make that happen. If you're a business owner or a sales manager with an underperforming sales team, let's talk. Click on the link to my calendar in the show notes, schedule a time, and I look forward to meeting you. And I am back now with legendary builder of sales champions, Tom Hopkins. And I want to get the inside scoop now on your announcement. You started to tell us a little bit about Taylor, and so tell us more.
Well, I've had a challenge, of course. There's been people approaching me knowing that I'm winding my sales training career down, and they've approached us on wanting to take over our company and this and that. And I've always had a belief that if people haven't done it, it's really hard for them to teach it. And so luckily, I met Taylor many years ago, 16, and he, of course, built his selling career and his company. And he came to a program, and I kind of hinted that what I was going to do was kind of wind down my career. And of course, he started with me on a follow-up program. We met. And the reason, Wendy, I'm so thrilled is he not only spent almost 16 years using my training, but built the tremendous number of sales that no one has ever done in that industry. And of course, he's like a legend in door-to-door transactions. And now, of course, he's joining me, and he will be the man that'll take over what I teach. And not right now, we're going to many other industries because, sure, solar is a wonderful product, but every company that has a person called salesperson does need what we do. They are desperately in need of real how-to proven phraseology training to where they can take their people, their company to the next level, which obviously is what your business does. And I think salesology is a fabulous product, and it's something that people need to take a good look at, because I think you're giving them the tools, and that's important. It's not just hype, motivation, jump over a roof. It's here's what you say and do on a daily basis. Here's what you say to people on the telephone. Here's what you say when you first have an opening to meet someone that may not be interested in what you're doing. Here's how you overcome all of the negativity, and here's what you say. So I salute you, Wendy. It's a wonderful thing you're doing.
Thank you. Would you share a little bit more before we started this podcast? You were telling me a little bit about how Taylor got to be so successful in his field. And what you told me was that he followed your training to the letter, that he followed the phraseology, the scripts, if you will, the responses, the questions, whatever it is, he just followed your training. And could you speak a little bit about the importance of the phraseology, of what it is you're saying? Because what I see a lot, I'm sure you've seen this too, is you share with the client, here's the best way to handle this, and then they do something else. And it's, if you have a proven response, use it.
Well, and this is the thing that's so impressive about Taylor is he, and we were here together for a couple days, and I just was so knocked out how he has internalized so much of what I taught him. And he said he listened to my CDs. Back then they were cassettes when he first started. Now, of course, they're CDs. But he listened to all of my training over and over. And he was so fun because, he would say, now, Tom, I want to make sure my people, the people that he's leading in his team, understand the importance of when they say this, we say this. And he had it all down verbatim. And I couldn't be happier to have found someone who is totally a product of the product, and not just in the hype mode, but in the total how-to and the disciplines in the art of communication and selling. So it's a blessing, and I'm thrilled about it.
That's wonderful. Tom, I know that you have a gift for our listeners, and that is available. Well, first of all, I understand it's a free trial of your online training, and it's available at tomhopkinsvt.com/trial. We'll put that link in the show notes. But can you tell us a little bit more about the trial of your online training?
Oh, yes, Wendy. What I believe is people have to see and feel what a person teaches to see if it really is what they need and want. And that's why we have this free trial, which we're excited about. And thank you for putting it in your program. But I think people need to see and feel what they could learn, and then they open their hearts and minds to it. And it can be life-changing. I mean, again, as I mentioned, I had people come into my life that I can say had a tremendous positive change towards a greater life because of what they taught me. So we all need to have teachers become humble students, to open our hearts and minds, and to do what we're doing here, explore future opportunities that could bring benefit to all parties concerned.
Yes. And I know that you your training has been transformative in so many people's lives. It's been transformative in my life, so I have to thank you for that. And I want to thank you for being here with us today and sharing your thoughts and your wisdom. So I want to invite everybody, check out, go to tomhopkinsvt.com/trial to check out the free online training, the trial of the online training, and check out the show notes for all the links. Share us on social media, tell your friends, give us good reviews. And thank you for listening to the Salesology Conversations with Sales Leaders podcast. We've been talking to Tom Hopkins, and till we meet again, visualize yourself surrounded by cash. Really large bills.
Thank you again, Wendy.
You've been listening to Salesology, Conversations with Sales Leaders, the art of faster, easier, more profitable sales. Be sure to follow so that you don't miss a single episode. And while you're at it, please leave a rating and review, and be sure to share it with your friends. Tune in every week for more exciting insights and wisdom on transforming sales. And until next time, visualize yourself surrounded by cash. Very large bills.